Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining. In today's session, we have Anypoint monitoring overview. I'm Ishupal Singh, and have over 13 plus years of experience, mostly worked with the customers in the retail sector. And I joined MuleSoft about 8 months. Uh, it's about 8 months that I've joined MuleSoft, and part of the customer success team where we are helping customers solve challenges and achieve their business goals. Uh, To start with the particular session, what I have for the agenda is I'll be just giving an introduction about what the Anypoint monitoring is and why we need the monitoring, and then we'll use the platform to actually visualize the features that we have, right? So what is monitoring? Right. Short answer is it's a tool or a framework that helps us to keep the lights on and ensuring that sanity and this sanity of our services or systems is up to date, ensuring we are production ready and up to scale to ensure we are serving the traffic right. From Anypoint platform sides, it provides with the Anypoint monitoring, which helps gain visibility into both the infra and the application level details, providing both the means to ensure end-to-end visibility and also proactive means to ensure we are actually keeping the lights on, right? From an Anypoint monitoring side, the framework is divided into three paths, which is a monitoring of the application performance. It includes the infrastructure as well, log management feature, as well as something called as custom matrices and events, which is bridging the gap between the business and IT. So a few of the operational best practices and that why we need to have monitoring is this data everywhere. There's so much of data, search and correlation becomes difficult when we are actually trying to resolve any issues because the state of the systems, they actually change very quickly. We need to actually know the state at regular intervals to actually reduce the mean time to identification and mean time to resolution. If the levers are not in place, both MTTI and MTRs are actually going to increase, right? What it helps us is in actually making proactive measures to ensure that we are uh, stable in production and we are serving to customers as expected. So from the subscription model side, what we have is we have two different offerings. One is the Platinum, which comes with the very basic set of feature sets, and we also have Titanium. We can see the contrast which have been drawn, right? With Titanium, we get a varied set of features across different pillars, be it from a monitoring standpoint all the way to the dedicated log management. So in the subsequent section, what we're going to see is some of the features. And what I'm going to do is shift between the two different instances of the Anypoint platform, which I have to actually demonstrate in real time the some of the features from the platform. I am hoping the audio is all good. So what we have over here is, sorry. As part of the monitoring bundle tool, the platform comes with Anypoint Visualizer. Once we have monitoring and visualization enabled for all the applications, the visualizer is it becomes the first stop to actually gauge what's happening between the ecosystem, how the ecosystem is looking like, whether we are aligned to our API-led best practices or not. So if we see on the screen over here, the visualizer, it's giving a bird's eye view of the APIs or the applications that are currently hosted within the platform, right? So there are different checks and balances that we can do within this particular screen itself. So for example, the one that we talked about, ensuring if my ecosystem is aligned with the best practices. So I clearly see over here some of the APIs which are not tagged. So what we can do is clearly set some tags for these particular APIs, setting them to, let's say, experience API, which would uh, help visualize how the transactions are flowing as well, right? The second use case from this particular part is understanding the dependency for change management or impact management. For visualizer clearly draws a graph between the dependents and the dependencies, which helps to be more proactive in terms of change management. For example, let's say we want to understand the impacted services if we are going to change this underlying service, right? So anything which gets highlighted over here is something that's going to get impacted if we are going to change this particular service. So any consumers using this would get impacted, right? The other use case from the visualizer is, let's say, we receive an email that, okay, something is not working correct, and we want to find out what's not working correct. This becomes the entry point where we can actually go and simply visualizing the different artifacts or the different matrices can pinpoint to the exact failure location. For example, through this particular use case, I want to evaluate my average CPU utilization throughout the API ecosystem within the last 30 minutes. We can do that. We can also work upon the failure rates. For example, I'm interested in gathering more matrices to actually find out what happened in last 30 minutes that caused this particular spike in the CPU utilization or in the average memory utilization. So Visualizer is neatly integrated with the Anypoint offering called Anypoint monitoring. So let's say we want to monitor that. What we can do is, let's say, select one particular application. We select this particular application, which we know is a point of failure. So from here itself, we can actually go to more visualizing capability of the Anypoint monitoring. So this is not just capturing the real-time matrices of the data, how it is flowing. It is ensuring that we have data, the historical data, which gives us the confidence to actually perform analysis and ensure that we are making any changes which are in line with what would ensure stability in our system. So from the dashboard perspective, this is the out-of-box features, which helps an enterprise to jumpstart on finding what are the key matrices that they should be monitoring at or they should be looking at to monitor. For example, the overview tab gives us about how many messages have been received so far for this particular application, right? And what is the memory utilization looking like? And not only that, right? I mean, this particular level of detail can be handled through logging capabilities as well, that we are monitoring through different logs and collating the information. But this goes a level down as well. So within the applications, we have number of flows. The dashboard actually provides insights to different flows that are there in the application, thereby actually providing end-to-end visibility in isolating bottlenecks, if any. So for example, this particular API has a single flow. Had it had more than one flows, they would be depicted over here. They would be shown over here with average, minimum, and maximum response time of each clearly depicted and visualized. Now, how this helps? So for example, we are trying to find out that what particular part in the application is impacting the performance, which is degrading or not meeting the SLAs. So this becomes very useful in actually isolating at flow levels. Right? Similarly, we want to monitor the connectors. So let's say we have set of systems or applications which are using different connectors. We can do that as well. So just 1 second. Yeah. So what this does is it gives us the connector level matrices as well. So for example, we want to actually find out how many, if you're utilizing a database connector or a Salesforce connector, right? It gives a clear picture about what are the different matrices that we can capture, how the connector is actually performing in terms of capturing the request, the time it's taking to surface the response, and if there are any errors, what are the different errors that are looking like. So from the application side, uh, there are different out of the box over 100 plus matrices that we can capture. Similarly, if you want to capture something from the performance side, which is directly tied up to the infrastructure, we have certain capabilities which we can utilize, right? So let's say how uh, the number of the response time on the number of inbound flows, right? How each of them are uh, performing. Then if you want to capture the even the millisecond details upon the SLAs for different configurations, we can do that. Then, so there are different matrices that we can capture. The other point is from the memory utilization, which becomes the starting point when we are actually doing performance profiling, or we're actually working on um, um, improving the performance of the cycles. We want to get deep insights into how the memory is allocated, what are the different threads that are being allocated, how many threads are being allocated, and what's the trend looking like over the period. So everything is neatly visualized, which helps to make better decisions to ensure stability of the system, right? So what we recommend as one of the best practices is that first, we should establish within an enterprise that what we want to monitor, right? So we should know what we want to monitor and what are the thresholds set to meet that particular SLA, be it on the time side, the number of errors, how the connectors are performing. So first establish that, and then utilize the out-of-box dashboards to start building upon those matrices. Now, for example, let's say we want to further drill down into more sophisticated visualizations. Let's say that, okay, this visualization is uh, giving me too much of information. I would rather have something which is specific to my own needs. What we can do is we can actually go and create custom dashboards, right? So for custom dashboards, let's say I want to create a view which provides me with one bird's eye view of how all my APIs realizing my order processing are working. So for example, in this, I have set of process APIs, my system APIs, and the experience APIs. And these are all different applications and APIs. I can bring that data from different application and APIs into one particular view. And it's very easy to configure these particular flows. So all we have to do is we just click on configure. So let's say we create a new uh, graph over here and click on add. What this gives us is a canvas to play with and start configuring the different matrices that one can capture from the platform itself. So based upon whether we are actually selecting an application or an API, the different matrices would change. So for example, for an application, there are a set of predefined matrices. For example, I want to have a JVM utilization captured for one of my applications. We can do that. So once set, this would do is this would bring up a new panel and specific to different workers, it would show up the utilization about the JVM that we have, right? Uh, One good thing about visualization rather than alert notification is that we are getting historical data, and it's easier to visualize than to go through all the logs as well, right? But visualization alone is not going to help. We need some mechanism as well, because we cannot just monitor the screen throughout 24/7. We need some automated processes to tell us when something goes wrong. So for that, the monitoring capability provides us with what we call as alerts. That is, from within the visualization itself, within the dashboard itself, one has the capability to trigger an alert when something goes off the charts. For example, uh, to ensure my business runs smoothly, I need to ensure that JVM CPU utilization is never across 10 units, right? So if it is across 10 units, what it would do is it would trigger an alert. So that is, once the CPU utilization reaches more than the allocated threshold set on the alert, as soon as it's reached, we are going to get an alert which becomes which would help us in taking timely actions. Now, as a best practice, what we suggest is to set different thresholds in the alert section as well. Do not set everything as a red flag so that you have no time or less time in identifying what what is going wrong and which could actually turn the business upside down. Rather, we advise the customers to set alerts at multiple levels and utilize the feature of both info level and the critical area level as well, right? So that we are cautiously setting the alerts. The one of the This is one of the use cases that one of our customers were utilizing, where they were bringing in the entire set of applications and APIs, realizing the use case into one pane. And not only that, on regular cadence meetings, they were actually utilizing these dashboards as an opportunity to improve upon the different matrices that they want to capture. So this is also an ongoing process. Share the dashboards in regular cadence meetings with the business or the IT, and improve upon the different matrices that we want to capture, right? So one of the other use cases that was there was one of the customers, they just wanted to have a view of the different connectors that they're using in their ecosystem. So they were using different connectors. So they, for example, they had their Salesforce connector, their Anypoint MQ connector, and they wanted a deep dive into those connector level matrices, that how many requests have failed, how many have crossed the threshold SLAs. And those different matrices help them to identify the if the bottleneck was actually around the end system or their application system, right? What was taking more time, whether the call itself or the backend itself was taking more time to process these requests, right? So with the historical data, right, we also have the ability to drill down to a particular uh, time and date. So for example, I'm interested in knowing the date from certain intervals. We can actually go and drill down and see those visualizations as well. Uh, the dashboards is integrated with the end-to-end log management features as well, right? Now, let's assume that there's a scenario which has resulted in a failure, right? So there are some failures which are showing up over here in some time window. And let's expand this, right? And we want to actually find out more details that why these failures happen, right? So what Anypoint monitoring as a tool provides is an integrated log management solution, which provides us with the capability to aggregate logs from multiple log sources, such as your log files, the application log files, the infrastructure log files, that is the worker level details, and search and aggregate the data based upon that. So I'm just going to navigate uh, for better. It helps to aggregate, search, and visualize the data. Not only that, it provides us with the neat filters where we can actually say, okay, I'm just interested in knowing the error level details. I don't want to capture the info level details. We can do that. So we can filter only the errors. And since the platform is working on the monitoring platform is working at the entire business group and the environment level, we are further able to drill down to a specific environment. For example, a non-prod has dev QA and a UAT. We can actually select that, okay, only give me the logs pertaining to my sandbox instance. We can do that. There are different filters, and just a quick check on what are the different filters. We can do a quick uh, navigation that we can actually search for free text as well. So let's say I know that throughout the transaction, I'm interested in knowing something that is a key identifier in the loggers. I can do that. And what it would do is it would give me all the details in which that particular free text is searched. So this is how monitoring and log management are working integrated tightly and working very closely into the platform to bring end-to-end visibility and providing us with the charts and capabilities to analyze on the issues to reduce the mean time to identification and resolution, thereby improving both the operational capabilities and ensuring stability of the services and the systems. Apart from monitoring and the alerting capability, the Anypoint monitoring also provides us with a feature called as log points, which is also known as codeless logging. Uh, what it means is assume a scenario where we are front-ending some non-mule applications through a mule proxy, and we want to find out what is the request which is going in and coming out of that particular API or a proxy, right? Without actually going and making a change either at a proxy side or at the backend application, we can just set some log points which we want to monitor and log, and those would start filtering in into the log management or the log warehousing product that we have. A note of caution over here, this does impact performance, so we only recommend to use this when we are actually debugging an issue or an incident. Right. This is a very enriched tool, and it's a very helpful tool as well, right? So I don't have to go back and change anything on the proxy. I can just, through a simple UI, make addition to the log points and start getting more information about the data flowing in and out of the application. The other use case from the log points is, let's say if we have an API which is utilizing set of connectors, and we want to change the level of logging that we are performing at a particular connector. One of the ways is we actually go to the code, change into the log4j file, and then deploy the code. So this is an entire process. We have to ensure we are testing the process as well, and the CI/CD build pipeline is ensurely confident enough to run and propagate that to the production. One of the easiest way is through log management, through log points, where we can, without actually opening up the code and deploying the code, set or change the log levels for a particular connector, which would help us with more log details or incident details. With all this said, from a log management feature, it's not just about visualizing within the platform through the dashboards or through the logging capabilities. We also provide a feature in which we are able to download uh, the raw data of any particular application, for example. Sorry. So it provides us with the capability where we can download all the log files. I'll come back to this particular later. I just have to find some application where we can show what are the different log points or the logging files that we capture. Uh, Once we have established the matrices that we want to capture and build upon the custom dashboards from the IT side, we go a step further where we are able to collect and bridge the operational matrices from the payloads as well, the transactions as well, right? For example, let's say I have a requirement where I want to capture the number of orders which are flowing in through the order API and what is the dollar value associated with that particular transactions. We can build custom dashboards through custom matrices and help visualize the data as well. So for example, what we have over here is what the visualizer is showing us. There is an order API which captures different orders, and it's we are able to visualize the dollar value associated with the total promotional value of those orders, and also able to actually filter out that within the promotion cycle, what are the different products that are selling more? What is the trend looking like for each of the products, right? So this is helping to grow beyond the operational or the performance matrices and enabling consumer-facing business dashboards, right? Which helps the IT communicate the business value to stakeholders. So for example, I want to capture the returns because I want to ensure that if I want to minimize the returns, right? I want to ensure that returns is something that should be minimized and I should be moving on towards selling of that product. And if and what is actually causing that return, in what particular time those returns are coming in. So all those visualization would help make a business make better decisions. So we can do that. With all this said, we can move to reports. So for example, we just don't want to visualize the data. There's always a need to extract the data from the dashboard and start building up some external capabilities, right? Let's say we want to utilize this data in our regular test cadence meetings. We want to see, okay, to ensure the stability of the request, are we ensuring that we have the right capacity set for all your application based upon the request volume that we have received, right? Based upon the performance of each of the applications, are we setting the correct SLAs? Are we ensuring that the design adheres to the set SLAs? So we can do that. These reports are on different parameters, all the way from capturing the request to even capturing the failure matrices. So if there's a failure, what are the different failures looking like? How many have failed, right? So all these are going to provide insights uh, to both business and IT to ensure the operational efficiency. These reports can be exported as CSVs and for further analysis and usage. Uh, the one of the other features that we support is the use of certain tools and connectors. For example, we want, while the alert was being raised, right? If you recall, through custom dashboard, we were raising an alert which would send an email that the JVM has crossed more than the threshold. So for example, we want to capture that event as well and create a ServiceNow ticket assigned to the IT department or the operations department. MuleSoft provides that is able to handle those particular integrations utilizing the out-of-box connectors. So to realize that particular use case, the one we we're talking about, in MuleSoft Cloud Hub 4, API can be used to subscribe to those alerts, and then a ServiceNow alert as a target to start publishing those alerts into the ServiceNow target system. The other features that we have from the Anypoint monitoring as a whole platform is what we call as functional monitoring, which essentially is a health check or a ping check that we can use to ensure that the business critical APIs are performing the way they are meant to perform. So for example, let's say I have a use case where an API connects with the backend SAP system, and that particular connectivity is very important to realize the potential of the experience APIs, right? So I want to ensure that that connectivity remains intact. And if it is not, I want to be alerted before it becomes a boiling issue. So for that, we can set an alert, let's say SAP alert, click on next. And let's say the endpoint for that particular API is demo.sap.com. And what is the expected outcome from that API? Let's assume that the expected outcome is it's a get operation and the expected HTTP response is a 200. So I need to run this particular test every 15 minutes, or I can set based upon the cadence that I have, based upon the requirements of a use case. How often should I go ahead and check this particular use case, check this particular API, which is internally connected to SAP for its sanity. Once we set those parameters and add we have the ability to get alerted through multiple channels, be it through Slack or through a traditional email. So let's say it's an email. So say it's an email. What it does is, so what it would do is it would create a health check API behind the scenes and would trigger every 15 minutes to ensure that the connectivity is established. If it is not, the person, the IT operations team can get an alert. So basically, we would use these alerts for, let's say, the operations team or the business owners team, where we want to ensure that, okay, business is up and running, supporting the use cases. So this was it from the core monitoring capability. We also have something called alerts, which are tagged to both runtime alerts as well as the application, the server level alerts. We'll see the different alerts that we can have. So let's say we have a need where we want to be alerted if the threshold is actually crossing XYZ percentage, sorry. So let's say we want to create an alert where we want to be notified when my SLA on the worker is actually reached. So if you see, we have different severity, like critical, warning, and info. And as suggested earlier, as a best practice is we should actually utilize all these so we are more proactive in handling all these errors. So let's say we choose a server type as clusters, cluster one, that anything that happens within this particular cluster, and if this particular condition is reached 80% or 10%, I should be alerted. So these are some of the different capabilities that one can set. And the capabilities around the alerts actually vary based upon whether we are setting at the server level or at the application level. So for example, an application level, one could set, a DevOps team could set that if I want to be alerted if any of the deployment fails, so that we can take timely action. So those are so that is one of the alerts that we can set as well. Right. So this is it from the overall feature perspective from the monitoring side. If you have any questions, we can take that.
Hey, Shubhal, can you hear me?
Yes, Sandeep.
Yeah, so we have some questions on the YouTube chat. I'll just repeat those questions and maybe you can provide some answers.
Yes, please.
Okay. Uh, so the first question is, what kind of permissions will you need when you use Anypoint monitoring? So, and can you visualize the monitoring features on-prem?
Okay, so there are two parts to this question. I'll answer the second part first. The capabilities for Anypoint monitoring as a product are version dependent. As long as we are adhering to the mule version and the runtime, the capabilities are in parity for any deployment model, be it the RTF, on-prem, or Cloud Hub. The second part is to utilize these particular monitoring capabilities. There is a role set, an out-of-box role set for monitoring. I'll see if I can visualize that, if there's a way I can do that. Sorry, I'll, I'll log into a different um, account to actually show that. So there's a role called Anypoint monitoring, and it is set at the business group level. One can actually go and select that particular user. So the permissions are Anypoint monitoring users. Does that answer the question?
Yes, I think it does.
Okay.
Yep. So moving on to the new question. So for functional monitoring, how do we add SSL certificate when we are hitting an application with DLB and added SSL certificate?
Okay. Top of my head, I'm not sure about that, but what we can do is we can actually go and see the capabilities around that.
Yeah, so in functional monitoring, Ishupal, there is a way you can skip SSL validation. So I believe there is a way. So
S-
in the header, I know there is a parameter which allows you to skip SSL validations.
So yeah, these are the different parameters that you can set and control that what we want to do. But actually setting up the SSL is something that I'm not sure, but uh, this is the question we can take, and we can share our email address and take that question over the email and get back to the user.
Yep, yeah, we can do that.
Any other question?
So do we have APIs for Anypoint monitoring? For example, if I need to fetch the number of transactions, success, failure count for the last 24 hours, in which reports tab of, which is in reports tab of Anypoint monitoring,
Which is not, or which is
which
reports?
is,
So out of the box, there is no API from the monitoring perspective, but what we can do is actually export this as a CSV from the platform itself.
okay, so no APIs for,
No API from the monitoring side now.
got it. Okay. So moving on to new question. Uh, do Mule provide distributed trace monitoring, just like in microservices with Spring Cloud and Zipkin's server monitoring?
So when you say distributed monitoring, I'm assuming that if my microservices are deployed on multiple workers and multiple, let's say hybrid and on-prem both, is Mule capable to handle log files and aggregate log files from all the different sources? The answer is yes.
Okay. Do we need a Titanium subscription to display monitoring at inbound, outbound, and flow levels?
There is some built-in dashboards which do not require Titanium subscription, which provides some details into inbound, outbound, and the failure count.
Okay. 1 second. Is it possible to monitor whether end system is available or not, like database or SAP with any point monitoring, like a health check?
So if you have an API on top of it, you can do that using a functional monitoring. But
Okay.
there's another way. Let's say we already have an API, right? And we are utilizing a database connector on top of it. So we can utilize the built-in dashboards to actually visualize uh, if there are any failures to it. Those would all already be flagged to us. And then use the Anypoint log management features to get more visibility into when that failure started and what is the failure all about.
Got it. Next question is from Marco. What is the impact in terms of performance having log management enabled?
Um, in general, the performance side does not have impact from the matrices capability. There is a noted degradation when we use the log points. So we do not recommend using log points in production. Other than that, this is all production ready. It should not have any impact.
Okay. Uh, Another question we have is can we do functional monitoring for Experience API, which uses OAuth token?
Hmm. I'll have to check that.
Okay. Uh,
We can move to the next one. So
okay. Uh, will adding, so Pankaj has a question, will adding alerts have any impact on performance of API? or there is any config we need to take care to make sure performance of API is not impacted?
No, there should not be any performance impact.
Another question we have from Shri is alerts in the runtime manager and Anypoint monitoring the same?
No, there are some advanced alerts in the Anypoint monitoring, which are different from the runtime manager. The runtime manager is a predefined set of alerts, whereas advanced monitoring is something, let's say you want to configure your own custom dashboard and you want to measure, let's say, um, something more from the capability side of the platform, in the sense monitoring the thread count, right? Going even detailed further, monitoring the JVM. So you can set alerts onto that particular level. You want to ensure that, okay, you are not hitting your threshold and CPU utilizations. From a runtime manager, it is a restricted count. It is a limited set of alerts that you can have. There
Oh,
is an overlap, but advanced alerts on the Anypoint monitoring provides more feature level alerts as well.
so we have another question from Mukund. How to monitor how much percent of vCore is used by a specific API or a flow?
So there is a built-in dashboard for that. So for example, I'm just trying to look where that is. There is a CPU utilization uh, screen. And if it's not showing up, there's a way that we can actually
It's
build
in,
a
right?
custom dashboard.
And then in flow level, there'll be some metrics.
Yeah, flow level is from a flow perspective. And here is the matrices around the CPU part. I'm just trying to search where it is.
It should be here or in the app as well, Shupal, too,
It,
please.
it, it should be here as well, or it could be within the custom dashboard as well you can create. So here is the CPU utilization as well in the overview chart. So this is giving me the percentage of the CPU utilization for that particular application.
Okay. And they can also go in runtime manager and they can also see the CPU utilization there, right?
Yes, the analytics. Yes.
So another question we have from Krishna is enabling analytics to Splunk going to reduce performance?
So Anypoint monitoring is separate from the runtime monitoring. So these two are both different things. So it would depend upon what level of monitoring we are doing via Splunk. For example, if it's a high volume transaction volume and we are using Log4j, right? Then of course, and that Splunk is on premise, then of course, then it would take some bandwidth. But if it is cautiously logged, then and the logging is done as per the best practices, then there should not be an impact on that. Logging actually works on an async mode in Milford. So,
Okay.
but just keeping in mind that Anypoint monitoring is different than the runtime monitoring, and the Splunk logging that we use is mostly at the application level and the runtime monitoring level.
Thank you. We have another question. Is it possible to set alerts in case of spawning new mule applications by auto scaling solution?
Can you repeat that question?
So yeah, it's confusing. Is it possible to set alerts in case of spawning new mule applications by auto scaling solution? So we can increase the CPU capacity, right? Core sizes by auto scaling. I don't know if you can spawn new mule applications using this.
Uh,
Like
so
workers. maybe.
So let's try to rephrase that and see if that might help. So by default, the worker application, the Cloud App applications are intelligent, self-healing Cloud App workers, right? So they would actually do a check on that if the application or the worker itself is available or not. If it's not, it's going to spin up um, based upon the blue-green deployment model. But you can be proactive in setting up an alert before it actually reaches that threshold. For example, you can set a alert to be notified when the worker is not available or it's not running. And you can set an alert where you know that, okay, once your CPU utilization or the memory utilization for that worker reaches some threshold, the worker is potentially going down. So set an alert before that and be more proactive. So the whole purpose of setting an alert uh, is to be more proactive and less of reactive. So of course, the alerts are more into the reactive nature, but we should incorporate the alerts in a way that we are making the alert capabilities to be more proactive and helping us before the incident actually boils down to a severe problem.
Great. Thanks, Ishupal.
Sure.
So another question we have from Sebastian is, what level of integration with New Relic does monitoring provide, and how we can make use of it?
Can you repeat that, please?
What level of integration with New Relic does monitoring provide, and how can we make use of it?
So the first one is on the functional monitoring, right, that we can utilize. So it's tightly integrated with New Relic. You can do that. However, let's say if you want to expose some of the data, not the Anypoint monitoring data, but the runtime monitoring data, you have the capability to integrate using the agents. So from an Anypoint monitoring capability perspective, exposing the data is actually limited. So it's the visualization part within the platform itself that's there. The New Relic integration is from the alerting capabilities.
Thanks, Ishupal. What is the performance impact if we enable monitoring for each API?
There's no impact. The only impact is on the log points.
Uh, if we enable log points, will we publish the logs in Runtime Manager and Monitoring Log Search?
Yes, as long as the monitoring is enabled for that particular application, the API.
So somebody added a Scott Johnson added a comment that he's confused about the performance comment. He read that documentation says that it has some minimal impact for the performance of
That
the.
would be from the visualizer side.
Okay. So another question we have from Marco is, when you use the functional monitoring, you should create an application on Runtime Manager. How many vCores should be assigned to this application?
So I did not get that particular
So,
question.
so it looks like he's asking a question that functional monitors only work for the applications on Runtime Manager. Is that true statement?
Public facing interface, but you can also utilize the applications which are deployed within your VPC. So your functional monitoring would create a private application, and by default, it would assign the minimum allocated resource. But in general, if you're utilizing the functional monitoring, those are public facing APIs or something which is accessible publicly. So you cannot have some API which is not accessible outside of the Mule platform or to the audience. You cannot create a function monitor on that.
Okay. We have another question from Ranjit. When you use the log points, it will log the body. How can we limit a specific user who is running it? Can we do a log point setup? Level log point setup. Sorry if it's confusing.
So if I understood it correctly, how do we ensure that Uh, we are logging like
Uh,
specific set of data
So
from.
the question is around log levels.
Mhm.
So they are asking how can they control specific user on changing the log levels, I think.
So it's again based upon the monitoring user access. If the user has access, they would be able to change that.
Okay. Are you showing something, Ishupal?
No, no, I was actually trying to go to the log points. Sorry.
Another question Archana has is how do you know how many API was deployed to a runtime? So I think the answer to that would be you can either use the platform APIs, which will give you a count, or you can just go to the runtime manager and check out how many applications are there.
Right. I would suggest the first one where we utilize the platform alerts, platform APIs to capture the insights.
Yep. So another question from Alfred is there a way to export the metrics using Anypoint monitoring? So I think you talked a little bit on that if you want to repeat it.
Yes, there is a way. So all this all the data can actually be exported in form of CVS, sorry, CSV files, the reports, the metadata.
Got it. Uh, Another question we have is for setting custom alerts, we need to use CloudUp connector in our application to get different metrics. Uh, and I read that it has a limit of 5 custom alerts per second. Is that true? The custom metric connector, Ishupal.
It has what? The custom matrix connector, it has what? Sorry.
So if we are setting custom alerts, we need to use CloudUp connector in our application to get different metrics.
Hmm.
And the documentation somewhere says that it has a limit of 5 custom alerts per second. So is that true?
Uh, I'm not sure, but if it's the MuleSoft documentation, it's true.
Okay.
And if you're looking forward to, I just wanted to go back to the question where we can export the data points. It's not only that we can export just the canned reports that we have, but we can also export as a CSV all these matrices that are being visualized through the dashboards. So if we click on any of the tabs, we get export CSV. So all the matrices can be exported as a CSV if you want any further analysis, or we want to hook up this to some external UIs.
Okay, great. Thanks, Ishupal. Uh, and we have last couple of questions. I think then we can probably take a pause. Till how many days does logs are? How many days are the logs stored, and what is the size in titanium?
So there is, so the one thing is that the files are rotated. There is a file limited, there's a size restriction on about for prod, I believe it's 200 GB per vCore, and all the applications share that log. And the retention policy is from a dashboard perspective is 90. I believe there is a way in which we can request access for more storage capacity as well, so that
Okay.
they are not overwritten. So we have those logs. So visualization and the logs would be there.
Uh, okay. Ranjit has another follow-up question. So my question is, can we customize it to a level where we can log the body of a specific user who is facing the issue? I'm
Uh,
sorry, it's like a three-part question. Let me read it and get back to you. So another question is, where are these logs stored in Titanium? If you want to take that.
yeah, this is MuleSoft managed log management storage. But from a region perspective, there is a flexibility to where we want to host these. So if you're into European side, you can always host them closer to the data center, which is within your region to comply with the governance and the regulatory compliance. So there are different data centers which are capturing these logs.
Thanks. I think Ranjit's question was if they enable a lock point to see the payload, is there a way to only make it visible to a certain user versus everybody who is accessing the service?
So as long as that user has the Anypoint monitoring permission, they would be able to see that in the Anypoint monitoring side. So it's the access is controlled in the access management and not at the monitoring side.
Okay. I think we covered most of the questions, Ishupal. This was a great session. Thanks for the hands-on demo today. And I know the recording will be posted on our YouTube channel. So if anybody wants to go back and refer to this recording, feel free to do that. And just another reminder, right? We have the Digital Connect event coming up. So it's free to sign up. Just go to the website and sign up. I'll be posting the link in the chat soon. And Ishupal, if you have that slide, you can bring it up and just show it to the people who have logged in. It's in the Slack channel that Suyog shared.
I'm sorry, what was that?
There is a slide that Suyog shared if you want to just present that. And
Okay, just one second. I'm going to pause my screen. I just want to navigate to a different screen. Are we referring to this one, Sandeep?
let me see. Yes. Yep. So we have the new Connect event coming up on May 20th. It's going to be an online event, so everybody can register for free. The link is mentioned in the on the slide in the bottom, and I'll also paste it in our chat. Thank you everyone for joining today.
Thanks.
Thank you, Shupal, for coming and showing us the monitoring capabilities in a short notice.
Thanks. And thank you, everyone. Keep safe.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.